It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, guys. We continue our discussions here, and in studio with me, I have the pleasure of chatting with one of the community activists here in Tobago, Mr. Leroy George. Now, you have utilized your platform on Facebook to make a number of comments on a number of issues regarding economy, regarding crime. And so this morning you want to make your voice heard here on Tobago Updates, and we are providing that platform for you to share your opinions on matters concerning the economy. What are your opinions on where Tobago is as we stand?
Well, shortly after I would have made my last contributions on the issue where Tobago's economy and subsequently where we are socioeconomically, where crime is concerned, took place. I would have done a live just last night. I got a call from Tobago Updates to come and speak. And I think central to any conversation, we should always remember the words of a very renowned civil rights activist in the person of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King would have stated that one of the worst things a society could do is to have a portion of that society feeling disenfranchised as though they don't have a stake in that society. And that such persons, whether consciously or subconsciously, would automatically want to destroy that society once they feel as though they don't have a stake in that society. And so whilst crime may not have one particular genesis, as in it's not the fault of any one person or any one thing, we all can ask ourselves, what can we do to have these disenfranchised persons in our society feel as though they have a stake in our society? So instead of pointing fingers, as we're seeing in the public space, and you're seeing THA representatives or persons who support this particular THA administration at this time when crime is at its highest point in Tobago, stating that THA can't do anything about it because central government can't have the authority according to the 6th schedule of national security. No, let's start asking ourselves, what can THA do? For example, we see in the 5th schedule in the 33 responsibilities that the Tobago House of Assembly have, we see education is there, and the persons who would have drafted that act, the Act 40 of 1996, they were very careful to put in open and closed brackets after education, on next to education, curriculum. So we have the authority to draft a curriculum whereby our students here in Tobago could be educated in such a manner that it actually fosters patriotism, and as a result, just being patriotic, even when life gets difficult, even when the economy fails us, etc., they would feel driven to not engage in criminal activities. That is one of the things that we could do right here in Tobago with the Tobago House of Assembly. Also, it is important to remember that stopping crime is not the job of the police, right? I heard Mr. Duke just before make a statement about persons not being afraid of the police, and I would agree with that sentiment. There is one thing that he said that I don't agree with, and I hope you'd remind me. That thing about not snitching and all of that, I do not agree with that. But it is true. What is true is that criminals are more afraid of poverty than they are with the police. So therefore, seeing that we have a Tobago House of Assembly government administration set up, whereby the vast majority of the money, the gross domestic product here in Tobago is controlled by the Tobago House of Assembly, what their responsibility is to foster an environment whereby young persons feel as though the opportunities that exist within the legal realm or legal work or legal ways of making income is much better and much more enticing than the opportunities that exist in the world of criminal activity. So those are two things that we really need to do. And addressing one thing that I feel needs to be addressed greatly it's not just up to central government and THA, it's also up to you and I. There is moral decay taking place in the Tobago space, and I want to say, I personally, if I see anybody engaging in illegal activity, whether they're toting guns or they're selling cocaine or anything that will make things hard for the people in Tobago, I am going to report it to the police. Yes, there are corrupt police officers out there, but I am 1,000,000% certain that the vast majority of police officers here in the Tobago space and in the Trinidad and Tobago space are good police officers. And as a result, and I know personal police officers who, if I speak to them, persons who I grew up with, if I speak to them and I say, listen, this, that and the other is the case, they will protect me because I know them. And I'm sure every adult in Tobago knows a police officer that they could go to. So no, you don't have to go to the police station and hope that the random police officer that you talk to is a good one that will protect your interests and make sure that the criminals do not turn on you. You could go and speak to the police officer who you do in fact trust. And so it's up to us to do our part. Also,
right. And we, sorry about that. We have seen a number of consultations happening here in Tobago. We've seen that the Prime Minister came over and he had that joint discussion with the Chief Secretary. And we now see that the new minister in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Scotland, is in Tobago now. Have you listened to some of the suggested policies to help combat crime in Tobago, and what is your opinion on that?
Yes, I've listened, and I'm not impressed at all, to say the least, right? Minister in the Ministry of National Security doesn't actually mean he's in charge of national security. There is an actual minister in charge of national security, and so anything he says doesn't carry the amount of weight that one would expect if it was the actual minister in charge. That also being said, put that aside, the conversation needs to happen within the knowns that exists within our constitution, etc. For example, Tobago has authority over about 6 or 7 miles of marine territory right around the perimeter of Tobago. We have reef patrol, etc. And so, if guns are coming into Tobago, perhaps we should invest more into the reef patrol officers. They are not being paid livable salaries. I have quite a few friends who are reef patrol officers. They are not being paid livable salaries. Perhaps we need to increase the number of boats, increase the kind of money they're being paid so that they feel enfranchised within our society to do their jobs and patrol our waters better. We also, in the 5th schedule, have authority over the airport and seaport. So to say that the guns passing through the airport and seaport and that the Tobago House of Assembly has no say in that, no, we could assert ourselves in those situations. But of course, we have to have leaders and representatives that are willing to not abdicate every piece of authority that they get through this 5th schedule of Act 40 of 1996 at the moment somebody from central government comes and decides to usurp it away from them.
And with the last murder that took place on the island of Tobago, we're hearing a lot within the social media space, specifically about retaliation and fear that is being touted in Tobago right now. Now, you said that you do not agree with what Mr. Duke said in regards to persons not coming forward at the community level to assist the police in their investigation. So what is your recommendation when it comes to individuals in the community still feeling safe, still feeling protected while also doing their part in the investigation? You highlighted that you think that they should talk to a police officer who they know, but do you think that would really restore confidence in the public to communicate the information that they have with police officers?
There's nothing to be restored. There are police officers who I know personally, right? I could even call the name, but I don't know if they would be comfortable with that. I know if I go to my neighbor, my next door neighbor is a police officer, right? One of my best friends growing up as a child is a police officer. Some of my former co-workers in former places. I know for sure there's nothing to be restored. We have that communication, we have that trust, whereby I could share information with them and that information will not go back to the criminals and they will protect me. So there's nothing to restore whatsoever where that is concerned. Persons that are trying to say that leave it up to the police to fight crime by themselves and all of that, they are being lazy. That is the reality of the situation, because if your personal child was a victim of crime, you would find ways to assist the police officers in solving the crime, if your child is going down a path of criminal activities, etc., you will find ways to get them off of the block without directly addressing the other guys on the block, etc. And likewise, we need to see Tobago as belonging to us and find ways to assist the police. The good ones out there, the ones that we trust, because even if it's a bad one, trust me, that same bad one, he has a friend that he would not sell out to the criminals under no circumstances. So it's as simple as that. Putting the effort into making sure that we are each other's brothers' keepers.
There was a town hall meeting that was held very recently at the Plymouth Community Center, I believe, multipurpose center, with the Chauvin police in that area. Were you able to be a part of that discourse?
No, I was not a part of that discourse.
And how have, outside of social media, how have you, been utilizing your voice or your community activism? How far has that gone?
One of the things that is causing a lot of crime in Tobago is that we're creating a socio-economic class system that did not exist in Tobago when I was growing up as a child, right? When I was growing up as a child, we didn't have rich areas and poor areas. That is something that's now coming in. And so one of the things that happened when I was a child and the murder rate in Tobago was 1 or none a year, was that the rich and the poor would communicate with each other, right? And when you are communicating, I communicate with a lot of the guys on the block, etc. When you are communicating with them as a law-abiding citizen, you need to be assertive. You need to make sure that your communication is respectful, but at the same time, you are respected to the point whereby idiotic conversations about who better than who and all of that kind of nonsense and 6 and 7 is shut down very quickly. And that is something that we have to bring back into our culture and intertwine into our culture so that the conversations that are taking place among the rich, the poor, the highly educated, the undereducated, etc. is one that does not facilitate criminal activity.
All right, so have you, well, you kind of touched a bit on the gang-related violence that, we have seen spilling over into Tobago with the contention between the 6 and 7 gangs. When you do go out in the community to talk to the boys on the block, do you hear the narrative regarding gang affiliation to these
Not at all.
gangs?
We don't have a 6, 7, 8, 9 problem here in Tobago, right? As a matter of fact, it's very important to take note of something. The day before Chris of Christmas List was supposed to come to Tobago to investigate the criminal activities or the block boys, etc. in the Tobago space. That is when he was arrested and charged with sedition, etc. And so the service was happened in the Tobago space. But what I do find interesting is that I did watch almost all the videos that Mr. Chris of Christmas List put up. And in science, when you see something recurring over and over again, then you're able to elevate what may have originally started as a hypothesis, and we're having a lot of discussions that are all hypotheses. I think this is what is happening, to having now theories and facts. And it is a fact that when he interviewed all these young men consistently, we're hearing these young men say that we feel disenfranchised. We are hearing these young men say that if we can gain employment that would make us feel as though we are contributing to our society, make us feel enfranchised, that will give us livable wages, etc., then we would walk away. And that is something that is constantly being said. So they are very open to putting down the guns, and they are very open to stopping crime. Whilst we may not have the same 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 situation taking place in Tobago, and it is not fashionable on the corners of Tobago among the young black men to associate yourself with 6, 7, 8 and 9, the same socio-economic factors are there. As a matter of fact, we are seeing an exponential increase in crime in Tobago, more so than in Trinidad. The last time I checked, the murder rate per capita in Tobago is actually higher than the murder rate per capita in Trinidad. And so we have to now ask ourselves what is happening in the Tobago space that is causing crime to escalate at such a fast rate. One of the things that I would always want to point out is the decreasing size of our economy. If you listen to Dr. Vanesh James, one of the most celebrated economists in the Tobago space, you would see that Tobago has been seeing back to back decrease in economy or negative growth economic growth in the Tobago space. And what a recession is when you have 2 terms, 3-month terms of back-to-back negative growth, you are in a recession. So Tobago is in a very bad place. And so even when we saw economic growth in the Trinidad space, we saw economic shrinkage in the Tobago space. And that is why I'll come back to say we need to facilitate an environment here in Tobago whereby the young people feel as though the opportunities that exist in the legal realm are greater than the opportunities that exist in the world of crime, because things are going south really quickly in Tobago, and we have to facilitate the growth of the private sector and a better and more efficient way of going about public sector control and activities.
Thank you so much for your contribution. It's a shame that we have to wrap up already this morning. There's so much that we can actually get into. The people want to know if they can see Leroy George putting himself out there again in the political arena, maybe come next general election or next THA election.
Yes, definitely. I have every intention of doing so. So look forward to seeing and hearing more from me with that intent.
All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap up this morning's discussions right here. We want to thank you so much for being a part of this morning's discourse by liking, sharing, and commenting. And thanks for all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster on the island of Tobago. Thank you and have a great day.